Automation. Either robots or cobots are drawing a lot of attention these days with the 44% growth of e-commerce and fulfillment needs across a number of industries and consumer categories. We've all heard the familiar refrain that automation is taking over manufacturing logistics, but that has not been the case due to offshoring versus automation. At Veryable, we believe that automation is a job creator, not a job destroyer. Hi, I'm Pete Conrad. I'm the VP of Corporate Strategy here at Veryable. In this video, you will learn the differences between robotics asset versus labor pool asset and how labor pool can create value for your operation. Deploy automation versus building a labor pool. So deploying automation is a big decision, and it's not fast. You got to go through, identify your requirements, identify what are the constraints, what are the key things automation has to accomplish, and then identify the trade-offs. Because the automation scope isn't going to encompass everything that you're going to want it to do. You're going to have to make a trade-off and say, okay, this is in scope and this is not in scope. And then you've got to build a business case around it, because it's important to have as short as payback period as possible when making investment automation, because it's a big expense. It becomes a fixed asset, it requires ongoing maintenance, and then all that visibility puts pressure on making sure that it's utilized and driving up its OEE. Whereas a labor pool, this is an on-demand asset. This is something to scale with. This is something that you can actually scale with very little cost, because you're bringing people in to scale up your operation and shipping that order to when you can then recognize that revenue. So building a labor pool then just takes a commitment over a number of weeks. It can be 6 to 8 weeks to build up that flexible external asset, and then all of a sudden you've got people to count on that the on-time and full stays high, that the lead time stay low, and that we deliver and exceed on customer expectations. Automation costs versus labor expense. So automation costs is a big upfront investment, and so with these high dollars tied up in it, there's a lot of pressure that goes into squeezing everything out of it and understanding what its contribution to unit cost is. And so, this can get into accounting problems then, because okay, now we're talking about allocations of things such as, the maintenance and all this and oversight. What gets bucketed here? Whereas on the labor expense sort of side, it's very clear as to where the labor is going, how it's being applied, and that it's, bringing value to the business. There's not pressure to use a labor pool. Bringing in labor is an operational expense that's tied directly to creating the product and driving value, where the automation then becomes this fixed cost, absorbing the fixed cost, which then just becomes something that has to be overcome before you start seeing that return on investment. Whereas with the labor expense, it's very transparent. Part of the cost of goods and part of the execution of delivering value to that customer. Automation specifications versus operational flexibility. The specifications for automation are very critical, because this defines the capability of this asset. So you have to get it defined appropriately, and then this always leads into discussion of trade-offs, because covering 40% of the needs, it could cost X, but then covering 80% is going to cost 3X. And so that's just tends to be kind of the name of the game. As the scope increases, the cost tends to exponentially increase, because it just takes more of that automation to do it, and it becomes more complex because there's more conditions that it has to handle. Whereas on operational flexibility side, we're talking about labor and bringing people in to execute around certain tasks. And so, these tasks, the process can be set up, but then we can have the tools in place and have those tasks outlined to where things are identified for the people to execute as that production is flowing through and coming to them. So when it comes to people, it's more a question of okay, what can they do? When it comes to automation, it becomes more a question of, okay, what can it not do? Scale, fixed capacity or flexible capacity. When you make the investment into automation, robotics, or cobots, it's capable of delivering a certain activity within a specified amount of time. It's just fixed amount of capacity because it's a fixed asset. On the other side of the equation, we've got flexible capacity, and so we're talking about people coming in to execute particular tasks to drive production. And so as we bring people in, we're adding capacity, we're adding people to the line, and so this is driving up the capability of that line and that production facility. Because it's really all about delivering to the customer expectations. That can be the trap for automation is that it can deliver quickly within its specs, but as soon as a customer comes on and asks for something different and it lands outside the specs, the business likely has to say no, or then has to pivot and figure, okay, how am I going to do this manually? And the best way to get there is actually to flex that labor pool. And if we can grab the incremental business and grow the business that way, then we can open up the conversation, okay, do we actually expand the robotics or automation capacity to encompass this new set of work? But it never would have materialized if it weren't for the flexible capacity that a labor pool would deliver. Benefits of automation and operational labor. Benefits of automation is that it's a job enabler. So it's going to lift off those tasks that are the 3Ds, dull, dirty, and dangerous. But these tasks are things that people aren't always good at doing because it doesn't access their creative thoughts or problem-solving capabilities. So we actually want automation to come in. And so we don't want to be trapped to Luddite thinking, destroy that first loom that was made, because we wouldn't be here today without the innovation and the progress we've made. So we want to stay on that path, leverage automation to really upscale these jobs that we have, and take advantage of what people do best, which is responding to changing conditions, solving problems, and increasing that throughput for the operation. So they both work hand in hand here. Automation, operational labor complement each other, and when used appropriately, they can really provide a solid foundation for the business to grow and to be best in class in its industry. The operational benefits to scale without upfront investment will enable the business to grow and take advantage of the next opportunity around the corner. If you want to start building out your labor pool, create a business profile of Veryable and begin posting ops today.